President Trump announced another big shakeup at the White House Thursday. In a tweet, the president announced former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations John Bolton will be his next national security advisor. He will replace H.R. McMaster in April. Bolton will become the president's third national security advisor. Bolton has met frequently with Mr. Trump to discuss foreign policy issues. He is a well-recognized figure in foreign policy circles, known as a policy hawk. He's been a frequent guest on Fox News over the last decade, where he slammed President Obama's responses to North Korea and the Iran nuclear deal. Ken Thomas is a White House reporter for the Associated Press. He joins me now from Washington. All right, Ken, just another Thursday. Let's start with this developing news from the White House. President Trump tweeted that John Bolton will replace H.R. McMaster as national security advisor. Tell me a little bit about, from your perch at the White House, this was not necessarily a surprise.
That's right, Elaine. It's a move that's been several weeks in the making, and this effectively brings about the remaking of the president's national security and foreign policy team. Last week, he ousted Rex Tillerson, his Secretary of State, and replaced him with Mike Pompeo, the CIA director. Now he's going to be moving H.R. McMaster out of the national security role and replacing him with John Bolton. The key thing with both of these moves is that it signals a much tougher line against Iran. The president has a major decision to make in the coming weeks on whether the U.S. will continue to partake in the Iran nuclear agreement. That looks very much less likely now that Pompeo and Bolton are going to be joining the team. Both have advocated for pulling out of the deal. And then the second big foreign policy decision will be, how does this administration, how does this president handle this potential meeting with Kim Jong-un? We don't have a time, we don't have a place yet, but both of these, in McMaster departing and Tillerson leaving, we're now moving into a much harder line with North Korea, and I think we'll see that both in Pompeo and in the advice that John Bolton gives.
And let me follow up here. You know, Wall Street Journal op-ed from 3 weeks ago, John Bolton argued that the U.S. should take preemptive military action against North Korea. And in a 2015 New York Times op-ed, he called for bombing Iran to prevent the country from making a nuclear weapon. Here's some of what Bolton had to say when asked about those topics on Fox News Thursday evening.
I've said what I've said about the Iran deal before. I'm not sure I've ever met General Mattis, so I'm not going to opine on what his views are, what he said to the president in private, or what discussions we may have the opportunity to have.
In terms of North Korea, do you believe that the president should sit down with Kim Jong-un? You have also said that the military option is needs to be in the forefront, I guess might be a fair way to say it, from the statements that you've made, that it should absolutely never be off the table. Do you think he should meet with him?
You give a great interview. Same question, same answer.
Okay, so Ken, you just sort of signaled there that basically what this could mean is a potential change in the direction here of the Trump administration's foreign policy when it comes to Iran, when it comes to North Korea. If John Bolton had been in place, do you think that there would have even been a proposed meeting with Kim Jong-un and President Trump?
That's debatable. The president seemed very interested once that offer was made to accept it. There's some thinking within the White House that perhaps they have put North Korea back on their heels a bit, that they were surprised that the president accepted the invitation. We'll have to see where that goes. John Bolton, though, as many of your viewers may remember, was a very strong advocate for the Iraq War. His detractors consider him to be a warmonger, and I think the concerns as it relates to North Korea are very much in the same vein, that he might advocate a preemptive strike, something that would be a much more dramatic push towards combat of some sort with North Korea. That's the concern from Bolton's detractors. I think it's worth noting, too, that the National Security Advisor is not a position that needs to be confirmed by the Senate. And when he served as UN ambassador, he was actually not able to win confirmation during the Bush administration. He was a recess appointment. So that speaks to some of the controversy that he has stoked in the past.
Yeah, because of his depth of conviction on these issues. Let me ask you about what's happened on Capitol Hill. The House passed a $1.3 trillion spending bill. It includes over $1 billion for the president's border wall, but falls short of the $25 billion the White House had asked for. What has been the White House's reaction to the legislation?
The White House appears to be okay with this compromise at this stage. It's clearly not what they had hoped for in terms of border wall funding. The president had requested much more money in that regard. But they're also facing a deadline to keep the government open. It would be embarrassing to the administration if we had another shutdown. The bill's gotten through the House. It's awaiting passage in the Senate. A lot of eyes are on Rand Paul right now, who has been often a thorn in the president's side, whether he will allow this bill to go through. But by and large, the omnibus bill, they feel, provides spending in a lot of their priorities, and it's something that they need to get through.
So in the main, do they think they can claim any kind of victory regarding this?
The president will seek to claim victory on border wall funding. We'll say that it advances his priorities. It's certainly not as much money as he had hoped for, but it's a start. They also feel very strongly about the need to fund the military, and if we had a shutdown, that would be a knock against their efforts to do so.
All right, Ken Thomas in Washington for us. Ken, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.